Fred, let's talk about what's happened to the Republican Party and how you see it emerging from this bruising battle with certainly Donald Trump ascendant within the Republican conference.
Well, it has been bruising. And, I know that both the former Speaker Kevin McCarthy as well as Trump have been working the phones, working members that may have been undecided or maybe leaning for somebody else. They've been breaking their arms and legs. And, this quorum vote, obviously, it's a little bit unusual. You don't often have a quorum vote to start the legislative business. You do it at the beginning of a Congress, but that's about the only time now these days. But this is yet another opportunity for Jim Jordan and his folks to say, I'm looking for so-and-so, and they're going to come here and vote, and we're going to grab them, particularly if they've been avoiding that phone call or avoiding the meeting or not showing up or whatever. This is the opportunity to go really put them in the corner and work them over because the next vote's going to start pretty soon here, and it is alphabetical. And it's going to go a couple of ballots, as I said a little bit earlier. I think Jordan is going to be 10 to 15 votes short. The real question will be what happens on the second and third ballot. Do the numbers stay the same? Do people vote exactly the same as they did before? Or is there some slippage that then leads to Jordan actually becoming Speaker? And the real issue, and I think, as you look at the folks who have come out and said that they're not going to vote for Jordan, particularly on this first ballot, is they want to govern. We got to have a CR. We don't want to shut down. We didn't want a debt ceiling collapse last June. And where Kevin McCarthy ran into trouble was not only did he deal with the Democrats and the Biden administration on avoiding a debt default, thank goodness, in my view, but he also did that to avoid the shutdown on September 30th. Now, he tried every which way to get Republicans to vote for a CR that had massive cuts in spending. He couldn't get it done. And so at the end of the day, the only way that we could keep the government open was that he worked with the Democrats. Virtually all of them voted for the CR. Most of the Republicans did as well. And so truly was bipartisan. But they also got huge majority in the Senate, where, remember, you've got to get 70 votes. It's the same scenario now as we look at the next government shutdown potential on November 17th with a continuing resolution. You got to get 60 votes in the Senate. And you're going to have bipartisan cooperation in the House because you've got some folks that have been on the record for years and years and years in the Republican conference who have said, I am never going to vote for a CR. I am never going to do that. And that's why you got to reach across the aisle if you're going to try to keep the government open. Then, of course, you got the issue of Israel. And I have to believe there's strong bipartisan support for that in terms of what happened. But we also know that we've had a couple of test votes on Ukraine. It's probably a 3-to-1 proposal in the House for more Ukraine aid. Yet it's Jordan and some others that have actually absolutely stopped the assistance for the Ukraine, which, in my view, certainly needs to go forward, particularly in the next couple of weeks.
So, Garrett Haake, this could be a vote that is basically for Ukraine or not for Ukraine, and a vote of, do you believe in a shutdown or a continuing resolution? And now we've got Brian Fitzpatrick, a key moderate, suggesting he might be leaning and able to vote for Jordan.
Yeah, Andrea, although I doubt any of these Republicans are going to look at it through that prism, I think it's a fair way to consider it here. And yes, you're right. As he walked onto the floor, we got a statement in our inboxes from Brian Fitzpatrick, a Republican from Pennsylvania. Our viewers may be familiar with him. He's the Republican who heads up the Problem Solvers caucus. He's as much of a moderate as anyone is inclined to think exists in this House Republican conference. And in this very lengthy statement, he basically makes the case that he will grudgingly vote for Jim Jordan for a lot of the same reasons I explained of Juan Ciscomani, who finds himself in a similar position, that the government needs to get back to whatever kind of functionality it can by electing a speaker. He goes to great length to describe the various problems in this country that he thinks need to be solved, the border, the Israel-Hamas war, the war in Ukraine, issues that Congress needs to address and can't without a speaker. He also continues to attack the 8 members who forced Republicans and indeed the country country into this situation by voting to oust McCarthy. That irresponsible action he places at the root of this, and I think tries to express the frustration that we've heard from a whole lot of Republicans who don't want to be in this moment, don't want to face what to them is a choice that, I mean, in some cases, almost an untenable choice between Jim Jordan and Hakeem Jeffries. That's basically the way they look at it. I'm not saying those are their only options, but I'm telling you that's how many of these Republicans feel. And in this moment, Brian Fitzpatrick says he will choose Jim Jordan, kind of taking another name off our board of potential holdouts as we approach the start of this vote. Michael
Steele, speak up here. Let me hear what you have to say about that.
Oh, I've got a lot to say, Andrea. I'm sorry. With all due respect to everybody who's sitting here talking about, oh, you know, I'm voting for Jim Jordan so Congress can get back to work. In what universe does that happen? Can we just be honest? Jim Jordan has stood against everything that would move the Congress towards work. And now as Speaker, he is going to do what? Tell all those folks who were mad to Congressman Upton's point, they were mad at McCarthy for sitting down and cutting the deal on the debt and cutting the deal on inflation to keep the country from falling apart. They fired him for doing that. And so now they're going to say, okay, Jim, you can go sit down with the president and do everything that we have been fighting against having done over the last 2 or 3 years. It makes no sense. So this is not about governing. This is about positioning. And this is about putting the House in a position to square up against the administration. The country is not going to move forward under Jim Jordan's leadership. It just isn't. Why? The man is impeaching Joe Biden. Where does this work, people? So, I mean, let's kind of get the fog out of our eyes here and understand exactly what the political reality of this is. This is not about governing. This is about positioning the party to be the absolute abject objectioner to everything that the administration wants to put forward, and then blame the Democrats for when it falls apart. They blame the Democrats for not supporting McCarthy. How crazy is that? Hakeem Jeffries didn't call to vacate the chair. Matt Gaetz did, and 8 Republicans followed. So now all the Democrats should follow, and after voting for Hakeem Jeffries on 15 ballots, on the 16th ballot, support Kevin McCarthy. I mean, this is upside down world, and I think we just need to be realistic, and the country needs to be prepared for what is to come. There's not a bone in Jim Jordan's body that indicates he wants to govern and find compromise and to work with the moderates in the House to build the coalition to move the country forward. I just don't see it, and there's nothing in his history that shows that that's there. But we can continue to pretend if we want.
Brendan Buck, is there a Jim Jordan 2.0 if he gets the gavel once he has the power?
So what's so funny about what Michael just said, and there's some great irony to this, that is a pitch that Jim Jordan is making to the moderates, that I alone can govern because I can cover for you on the right. I can provide the cover you need. I have the credibility with the right. We'll be able to govern without there being a lot of blowback. You know, this is one of those situations when you're whipping people, there are people who want to get to a yes, and there are people who want to get to a no. What it sounds like is you've got a lot of people who want to get to yes. Give me some rationale that I can use to say that I'm there. And I think that's what you're seeing with Brian Fitzpatrick and a lot of these people who, these appropriators, who their job is to fund the government. Jim Jordan has been trying to blow up the appropriations process for years and years and years, but he's telling you, no, I'm your guy now. And I think that, you've got people who are just, give me something. Give me something that I can use, and they're willing to use it to say yes.